Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about the possibility of solving an American cultural art crisis by using Dungeons and Dragons. All right, here we go. All right, so America has an American cultural art crisis right now. So Joe Rogan has won the world of journalism and has just absolutely destroyed his competition and far outpaces every journo who is in competition with him. Like, he's just become the winner of journalism, right? And but his show, he said it. He's like, it's just like Matthew Mercer's Critical Role. Just started as some friends talking on a podcast, but now he's a major journalist, and he is, he's helping to decide who is and who is not president of the United States. Right? Andrew Yang was massively boosted from his podcast, like in the 2020 run up, and it's a really big deal. Like, Joe Rogan, big deal, right? Well, Neil Young and Joni Mitchell, and I think Crosby, Stills, and Nash, mostly a bunch of old, mostly forgotten artists, are like, hey, we would like to use our art to stifle your free speech, Joe Rogan. So we're demanding that either we stay on Spotify or Joe Rogan stays on Spotify. And Spotify's like, thank you, next. Right? Like, y'all's gone, Rogan's staying. Like, we paid hundreds of millions for Rogan. Why do we need you again? Like, maybe 4 people remember your music. Like, and Spotify's like, bye. Right? But this is a true American culture art crisis, right? Basically, Neil Young and Joni Mitchell has said, hey, if you're an American artist, you should use your art to make sure other people's free speech is suppressed, right? Is that correct? I'm going to tell you if that's correct or not. Wait a second. Should I tell you if that's correct or not? No. There's a much better use of our time, okay? If I tell you my opinion, who cares, right? It's just my opinion. It's one person, right? But if I tell you how to model this American art crisis in Dungeons and Dragons, and then you model it in Dungeons and Dragons in Waterdeep, in Faerun, the most officially of all Dungeons and Dragons cities that exists, right? Then you can put it in front of your players, and then your players can take this American cultural art crisis and have it removed, right, from their personal political preferences. It could be abstracted, and then this entire American cultural art crisis can be put specifically into a position of abstraction and delight, right? And then we have the possibility of allowing the powerful confidence, charisma, and intelligence of your players to produce an actual solution to this American cultural art crisis, right? Because they could say, oh, hey, this is how this should be handled, right? And at that point, that's a very big deal, and that's super helpful, right? So Dungeons and Dragons always has the possibility, because it is a powerful simulation engine, it always has the possibility of producing unexpected, truly joyous, wonderfully useful, low-cost solutions, unlike a video game, for instance, right? Which is just, hey, we gave you these 3 options. Which ones do you choose, right? Like, whereas we have this limitless simulation engine. All right, so let me explain how to model this American cultural art crisis in Dungeons and Dragons, and then I'm going to ask you if any of your players do something shockingly philosophically brilliant, right, and say, this is how this should be handled, right? This is how all the parties in all the aggrieved parties come to collaboration, right? This is how we do more than just say, I don't like, XYZ, right? And get this really brilliant solution to a very genuine American cultural art crisis, right? So here's how you do it. All right, Waterdeep, all right? There is a inn, which I have created in Waterdeep, which is the Silver Star, right? So, okay, so your player characters are on a quest, right? And they've been quested to go to the south side of Waterdeep and find specifically a laborer who works in a warehouse, who is currently being hunted by an assassin. right? And their job is to find him and put him into a safe place and actually get him out of the city before this assassin finds him, okay? All right, so your players are on a quest, right? And they are skulking through an alley, right? And who do they come across? They come across Elowick Tumblestrum, the most famous Dungeons and Dragons bard, right? So Elowick Tumblestrum is a real Faerun bard. She is a gnome bard, right? And she, of course, goes into Waterdeep whenever she can, right? And so she's in Waterdeep right now. And so your player characters are going through this alley, right? And they see a small person sitting on crates crying, right? And now this is important, okay? I would love for this American cultural art crisis to be solved. However, if your player characters, you're like, hey, you guys see a small humanoid crying on a stack of crates, right? And your player character could be like, I don't care about that. We gotta save this person. We're on a time. we're on a time clock. Well, then an American cultural art crisis does not get solved, right? And the reason why is player characters have agency, right? Players actually have agency. I would love to solve this code, but I'm telling you, railroading is wrong, all right? Okay. But if even one player is like, oh, hey, why is this person crying? They'll actually, stop and say, hey, can we help you, right? And Elowick Tumblestrum pulls down the gray collar and says, oh, hi. And then, of course, all your characters know Elowick Tumblestrum because she performs in half the Waterdeep inns and taverns, right? And they're like, oh my gosh, you're Elowick Tumblestrum, the super famous Waterdeep gnome bard, right? And they're like, why are you crying? And she's like, well, I got this terrible situation, right? She says, my mentor is an elf bard named Frix, right? And she has engagement, and I have an engagement this Saturday at the Silver Star Inn. And I'm really excited about it. I've already been paid 200 gold to perform at the Silver Star Inn. But my mentor, Frix, has told me you can't play at the Silver Star Inn. And the reason why is at the Silver Star Inn, there is a group of adventurers, right? They're called the Jolly Raptors, right? And the Jolly Raptors have this Dragonborn leader, and that Dragonborn leader is saying a bunch of misinformation. He's saying that the Castellantors are filthy, devil-worshipping cultists. Now, this is crazy. The Castellantors aren't devil-worshipping cultists. I know for a fact they give 1,000 gold pieces across multiple soup kitchens right here in Waterdeep. The Castellantors aren't devil-worshipping cultists, right? But in the Silver Star Inn, where I'm going to be performing, these guys eat and drink for free, and they are folk heroes, and they are welcome all the time. And this Dragonborn leader holds court there, whenever they come back from a quest, and tells everybody that the Castellantors are devil-worshipping cultists, right? Which is crazy. They're the toast of the town, and they're wonderful people. I've actually performed at the Castellantors mansion, one of their mansions, right here in Waterdeep, right? But my mentor, Frix, has told me you cannot perform there. Because if you do, you are supporting the misinformation that the Castellantors are devil-worshipping cultists, right? And we need truth to be upheld, right? But here's the problem. I've already received the gold, and everybody loves me at the Silver Star Inn. And if she tells me that I can't play at the Silver Star Inn, she's my mentor. I owe her, right? And so what am I going to do? Because if she tells me I can't play here, where else is she going to tell me I can't play? If she doesn't like something that anybody in the inn is saying, what do I do? There you go. That's how you solve an American cultural crisis, art crisis, right? I don't know the answer, right? But I know you have brilliant people at your table. And I know when this very real American cultural art crisis is put in front of them, and then it's abstracted and put into a position of delight where they're delighted to solve it, and they haven't been given a task. They've been given a wonderful puzzle, right? We've created this American cultural art crisis as a puzzle in Dungeons & Dragons, and Dungeons & Dragons is put into position of solving an American cultural art crisis. Let's get to work. I would love your assistance. If any of your players solve this and figure out how we can actually solve this problem in this American cultural art crisis IRL through your D&D game, please let me know in the comments below. Also, I'd love to hear any of your thoughts for other cultural issues within America that we can solve through our Dungeons & Dragons game. I'd love to hear that. Let me know in comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.